Hello everyone, welcome to my new video on the basics of service mapping. Service mapping is a very less talked product from the ITOM suite of applications. It allows you to keep a track of the underlying technology stack of your business applications and also helps you to quickly identify any impacts to your business services. Service mapping can discover application services used in your company and also generate a detailed map of all devices, applications, and databases used by your business applications. An application service can be your company's corporate website, or a sales website, or an email communication system. Horizontal discovery is a prerequisite for service map implementations, and it would help you initially to discover all the devices and their applications in your infrastructure. You can watch my video on the basics of discovery using the link provided in the description. All required credentials should be initially set up to discover the required servers and their applications for your service map. Service mapping automates the generation of connection between different layers of this application and the devices. This is why it is called as a top-down discovery. Let's say you have a dynamic website which is hosted on 3 different servers. It has an Apache web server which is handling the presentation layer. The Apache web server is connected to a Tomcat server which acts as the application layer and handles the business logic. The Tomcat server is again connected to a OpenView server which handles the database transactions. The 3 different applications are connected to each other and this helps to run the website. And the underlying technology stack forms your application service. Service mapping automates the generation of these connections to create a service-aware view of your business services. Let's say the OpenView server is down. With this service map, you could easily identify the affected services and take action immediately to restore your operation, or you could even eliminate any outages that can occur. There are different ways to generate service maps. We primarily use pattern-based discovery to generate precise mapping results. Traffic-based discovery, on the other hand, complements pattern-based mapping by adding network information from the traffic. Tag-based discovery is mainly used for cloud discovery and it can generate application services based on the tag information. In this video, we'll be focusing on pattern-based discovery to set up service maps. Going to my instance here, Mid server is a prerequisite to query the required connection information from your infrastructure. You can watch my previous video on mid server installation from the link added in description. Like discovery, you cannot specify a mid server in the schedules for service mapping and they are automatically selected based on certain criteria. You could control this either by specifying the IP ranges of your application services in the specific list here, or you can also select service mapping as a supported application to restrict the use of this mid server for your service mapping. For demo purpose, I have set up a dynamic Java web application which is hosted on an Apache Tomcat server, and it is also connected to a MySQL server which is hosted on the same device. Let's see how we could discover the service map for the specific application. This has a 2-tier application architecture and a simple case that we can demonstrate. Since this application can be accessed over an HTTP endpoint, we'll use the same as our entry point towards this application. You could access this application using the specific HTTP endpoint. So we would use the same to generate the service map. I'm copying this application URL. Coming back to my instance, you need to first activate the service mapping plugin before you can start configuring it. Under the service mapping application modules, you could see a module for application services. You can open the specific application service module, click on new, which should open a new UI page where you could create your application services. You need to provide a name for your application service, for which I would give the name as employee tracker. Now I need to select a service owner for this, or the person who is owning this specific application. I'll select the name as able tutor. I have different entry point options here. You can have an application entry point which is a web-based application, that's either HTTP or HTTPS based application. You can have application which is based on Microsoft Exchange, Citrix, SAP application, or you can also have a generic application based on the IP address and port number. There are also other application types. So if you click on the other application entry points, you can see all the list of entry points that are available and that you could select for building service maps. For now, I'll be selecting a web application because that's what we are going to discover. So I click on web application. I need to specify the URL for my web application, which is my entry point. So I'll paste the application URL here. Since this application is not hosted on a domain name, it actually don't have a domain specific URL and it is using the local host, which is the local machine. ServiceNow would redirect localhost to the loopback IP, which would be 127.0.0.1, which would not actually resolve to a server. So we'll have to replace localhost with the actual server IP address. So I'll be replacing the IP address for now. I'll change it to the IP address, which is 10.0.0.4. If I'm hosting this on a specific domain name, then the actual URL would be based on that specific domain name. Once I update the URL, I'll click on add, and this would be adding my first entry point, which is a HTTP HTTPS endpoint. Once all your endpoints are added, you can click on save to save your application service. Once your application service is saved, you need to start discovery for the specific application service. So you can click view map for this. Once you click on view map, it will start discovering a specific application service. It will take some time to generate the service map. So let's wait until this process is completed. So the discovery is now completed and a service map has been generated for the employee tracker application. On the right side here, you can see the attributes associated with your application service, like the operational status, the name of your application service, and all the other attributes associated with it. On your service map, at the top, you can see a down arrow key here. This corresponds to the entry point information. Entry point is actually stored as a CI information in a specific table. This table stores information like the URL of the entry point. You can see the class and CI type corresponding to this entry point, which is HTTPS endpoint and the related class of it. From this entry point, a connection has been created to the first level, which is the Tomcat server. You can see the attributes of this connection here. At the first level, we have the Tomcat server where the actual application is hosted. If I click on this, you can see all the attributes which are associated with the Tomcat server. You can see that Tomcat is created as a record in the application table. You can see attributes like the TCP port, the running process, and the process ID and all related information. You can also see the class information for this, which is CMDB-CI app server Tomcat. You can see an additional plus sign here, which would give you more information from the Tomcat server. So if I click on this, you can see that there is a connection from the Tomcat server to a specific entry called as employee tracker. This is actually the WAR file associated with the employee tracker. If I click on it, you can see all the attributes which are associated with the specific application, and this is a new CI application entry, and you can see attributes like the installation directory, which would give you the exact location of the specific application. You can also see additional information like on which table this is stored. So this specific entry corresponds to the Tomcat WAR CI, and you can also see the class name associated with it. Within the Tomcat WAR CI, there is an external connection which is made to a MySQL database. So you can see a connection record is again created here. So I click on it, you can see a connection entry which is made over port 3306, and this corresponds to MySQL. And if I click on this, you can see another application CI record is created with attributes like the port information, the running process, all the other attributes are captured here, and you can see the class associated with this is MySQL instance. This service map has been discovered using pattern based discovery, and it used discovery patterns to generate the specific structure. Now let's see how this application is actually set up on the Tomcat directory. So if I go to my Windows directory here, I have Tomcat server installed in my C drive. You can see this is my installation directory, and all information related to my Tomcat server can be found within this folder. If I go to the config file, you can get all information regarding my Tomcat server from the server.xml, and you can also use the web.xml to get all related information. Coming back to the Tomcat folder, the root folder where we install all application is the web apps folder. Within web apps folder, you can see a specific folder called as employee tracker, which contains the application file for employee tracker. This would contain all the HTML, CSS, JSP, Java, and all the related files. If I go to web.inf, I can access all my Java files. So for example, if I go to the test folder here, you can see a Java class which is called as DB manager. Within this file, I am trying to access the MySQL connector using the JDBC driver. So this is pure Java code where you can see I'm trying to access my MySQL server here. You can see the MySQL server information. My MySQL server is hosted on localhost, which is the local DB. You can see the port number which I have used to connect to my MySQL, and also the database which I have used to connect, and the other information. Now let's explore how the patterns discover all this information from my Windows server. So coming back to my instance here, if I right click on the Tomcat application server here, I can see an option to show discovery log. The discovery log will show me all the patterns which has executed. If I scroll down a bit, I could see that the Tomcat pattern has been executed successfully. And if I try to expand this, I can see further information regarding it. So for the specific pattern, you can see the identification steps has been executed. Once the identification is done, the CI is created. After the CI was created, a connection step has been executed, which is actually making the connection to the Tomcat war CI. You can also see that the specific discovery is executing only those application patterns which are related to HTTP endpoints. Let's explore the pattern associated with Tomcat. For this, you can open the discovery patterns module from the left navigation, which will list all the available patterns. We are only interested in those patterns which are used for creating applications. So I'll just filter out the pattern type by applications, and then I would search for Tomcat patterns. So we have two patterns that are associated with Tomcat. First one is the Tomcat, the actual one. Second one is related to the Tomcat war discovery. So I'll open the first one, which is what we saw in our discovery log, and let's see what we have inside this. You can see that the identification section has two entries, and you can also see the entry point type associated with it. Since this pattern has entry point type as HTTPS endpoint, this is the reason why this specific pattern has been selected as a part of this discovery. If you scroll down a bit, you can see a new section called as the connection section. This section is specific to service mapping and would only appear once you activate the service mapping plugin. And this is what creates the connection between different applications. Now let's see what is happening in the identification section. So let me open one of the identification section. Patterns are basically different steps of instructions that are sent to mid server to query information from your server. So you can see there are different steps that has been executed. The first step here is to match the Tomcat process. So you can see that this is trying to match if following process names are available within the target device. If this is matched, then it would be executing all other information. You can see other steps like it's trying to get the install directory of Tomcat. You can also see that it's trying to get information from server.xml file. All information are collected from the Tomcat installation directory, and this information would be used to create the Tomcat server CI. Once the CI is created, it would go back to the connection section and it would try to execute all patterns which are available in the connection section. So let's go back to the connection section. In the connection section, we have a specific pattern which makes connection to the Tomcat war directory. So if I open this, you can see that it's trying to create a connection, and you can also see the directory name and the app name is also passed along with this connection. Once the connection is created, The next thing that discovery does is to execute the next pattern, which is associated with the Tomcat var CI. So what would happen is it would go back to the next pattern, which is the Tomcat var pattern, and it would be executing the specific pattern. Let's see what is there in the specific pattern. In the identification section, the pattern contains all steps which are required to gather information from the application directory, which is the employee tracker. So it would be scanning across all the folders within the application tracker directory. If I scroll down a bit, you can see all the patterns which are associated with the connection section. There are patterns to make connection to web service connectivity. There are patterns which make a connection to the relational database. You can also see patterns which are making connection to Documentum, Preva server, TCTM job processor, LDAP connections, and so on. If I go back to my discovery log here, and if I try to find the discovery log specific to my employee tracker here, I right click and click on show discovery. I could see from the discovery log that the following connection pattern has been executed, and it was a connectivity to relational database. So let's try to explore this specific connectivity pattern. So if I open this connectivity to relational database system, this is what is creating a connection to the MySQL server. So what this pattern does is it tries to get the DB information. It tries different steps to get DB information in different ways. First, it would be searching for all JDBC file within the employee tracker folder. So you can see the specific command has been triggered to find all files which contain this specific keyword, that is JDBC colon. If they find this information in any file, all those files would be fetched inside, and all the details regarding these files would be further extracted. You can also see that it also tries to get JDBC information from different other sources, like it would also search for the web.xml file. It would see if the web.xml file has the JDBC information, then that information would be collected from this. So basically you would be getting the MySQL server and port information from the specific file, and that would be used to create this connection. So let's say we have got the server and port information. The next thing the pattern would do is to create a connection, which is done using the connection step. So you can see for the specific case, this step has been executed to create MySQL connection. And for this connection, you can see it's making a connection to the MySQL server endpoint, and it's also populating the host and port number, which it was able to fetch from the different file information. So this is how the connection is created between a Tomcat and a MySQL server. Once the connection is created, discovery would then proceed to the next CI, which is the MySQL CI, and it would be executing patterns which is related to the MySQL server. So if I check on the discovery log, you can see which pattern has been executed. So it has executed a pattern named as MySQL server on Windows and Linux. And this pattern would be collecting additional information regarding the MySQL edition. It's also trying to execute few other connections to MySQL, but unfortunately these have failed and it has stopped discovery at this point. This is how pattern-based discovery works. Coming back to the service map, once you're completed with the discovery, you can send it for review to the service owner. The service owner can either approve it or reject it. When the service owner approves the service map, the status of the specific application service, it changes to operational. If there are any issues associated with discovery, you could see these errors under the discovery messages and take action to resolve them. All changes to CIs like additions, removals are tracked under the changes tab. You can also find a timeline at the top of your service map, which can be used to access this historical information. You can find additional display options at the top right corner here. Display in host view changes the map view to display connections at the server level. You can see that now the service map is displayed at my server level here. If I click on this plus sign, you could see additional application information within the server level. This is really useful when there are multiple servers involved in your service map. Another display setting is traffic-based CIs. So if I go back to the settings, I have an option here to show traffic-based CIs. If I click on it, it would show me any CIs that are discovered as a part of traffic discovery. So you can see that there is an additional connection that has been created from the web folder to my MySQL. Traffic-based discovery actually fine-tunes your pattern discovery by adding connections which are derived from the TCP connections or from the network. I don't think this is a valid connection in my case because this was not set up as a part of my application, so I would be removing this connection. You will need to review all these connections which are added as a part of traffic-based connection. You also have an option here which is called as connection suggestions. You can either add them or exclude them before sending your service map for a review. Coming back to my service map, if there is an outage on the MySQL server, the monitoring tools can generate an alert through event management to open a high priority incident. The incident owner can make use of the dependency view of the server to quickly identify the impacted application services. So if I right click this MySQL server and if I try to view its dependency views, you can see the complete map of the specific Windows server. So let me try to zoom that in. So this specific Windows server, it's having a MySQL instance which is hosted on the specific server. You can also see the complete relationship here which finally ends at my application service. So this lets the incident owner to make use of this dependency view, and they can quickly identify the impacted application services and take actions to restore service operations. This is how service mapping along with discovery and event management support the ITSM process, and it also provides the best value to your customers. This is it about service mapping. Thank you all for watching.